Good morning, class. I'm doing my presentation on analyzing style variation in West Coast and East Coast during the 1990s. I got these theories from a reading in class, and I'm analyzing the theories utilizing Simon Freith's ideas of techniques and technology to help identify the process that creates different sounds with different intents within similar genres. So by looking at these techniques and technology, I'm able to identify the process that creates different sounds in different cultures of West Coast and East Coast. And even though they have a tendency to create similar rap music, they are different because of their environment. Another theory by Andrew McClintock investigates underappreciated similarities in the origins of East and West Coast hip hop practices. And the last theory I will investigate is by Dick Hedbulge and his cut and mix approach, which draws the light on where hip hop was produced and how it can be traced back to its origins in competitive Jamaican sound system cultures in the 1960s and 70s. The differences between the East Coast and the West Coast. On the East Coast, it was the birthplace of hip hop and the forefront of rap throughout the mid 80s. It grew out of a cultural movement praising artistic innovation and competitive, above all else, in a quest for the claim of originality. Some of the East Coast rappers include LL Cool J, Run DMC, and A Tribe Called Quest. On the West Coast, hip hop had been politically and socially motivated. A new subgenre was forming called gangsta rap. The very sense of neglect and exclusion from the New York establishment sowed the seeds of a new rap subgenre. In the 1990s, West Coast, aka Los Angeles, started to become the epicenter of rap music, and some of the rappers on the West Coast included Ice-T, NWA, and Dr. Dre's The Chronic. There is also a growing divide between the East Coast and the West Coast, as impossible to ignore as rappers and critics alike often embraced originality, distinct sounds, a diss record, or openly stated beef between performers was nothing new in this culture, stretching back from before rap music. The West Coast style had NWA and Eazy-E's mixing harsh stories of South Central Los Angeles with an eye for Hollywood sensationalism. The West Coast's laid-back imagery and passive-aggressive posture was a welcome departure from the punishing beats and incisive vocals of New York rap. It was tailored its fat bass beats and silky melodies for jeeps that cruise the generous spaces of the West. Glinting synths, sub-rattling bass lines, melodic instrumentals were
Fuck!
often. Dude, fuck you.
What?
Making my
Oh
fucking
yeah.
present. Sorry, my roommate's a dick. Glinting synths, sub-rattling bass lines, melodic instrumentals were often paired with narratives which in reality were scored by gunshots, screams, and sirens. The West Coast had G-Funk, which was a more laid-back and included some funk samples. They had Dr. Dre, The Chronic revolutionized G-Funk. They had Snoop Doggy Dogg, DJ Quick, and Tupac. And here's an example from Dr. Dre.
One, two, three into the folk. Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre is at the door.
Whereas the East Coast had hyper-tense and they spat a lot faster. They had aggressive, distant attitude characterizing New York's demeanor. They were more lyrical and had jazz samples. The Tribe Called Quest, some of the artists included the Tribe Called Quest, Mobb Deep, Nas, and Wu-Tang. And here's an example of their jazz sample. There were two major record companies. One of them was Bad Boy Records, and the other one was Death Row Records. There was a big feud that happened. So they released a debut of albums from New York rappers, including Notorious B.I.G. and Craig Mack. The album's success rejuvenated the East Coast hip hop. And then on the West Coast, they released Dr. Dre's 1992 album, The Chronic, and Snoop Doggy Dogg's 1993 album, Doggy Style. The Los Angeles was beginning to take New York's throne from hip hop supremacy. And lastly, I want to go over some ignored similarities. Sigmund Freud's ideas of technique and technology are employed to assist in identifying the process that creating different sounds with different hints within similar genres by recognizing that East Coast and West Coast hip hop both descended from Jamaican DJ sound system culture. The East and West Coast dialect can be seen as confusing at times, but it is through acknowledging the similar origins of both coasts that their differences are better understood. Both coasts recognize the primary expression of culture distinctiveness using separate but converging musical traditions. And thank you so much for letting me present to you today. Goodbye.